Good afternoon, Professor Everhart. My name is Jeremy Gatson, and I am a student at the University of Texas at Austin. In my course, Racism and Anti-Racism, I'm doing a case study over W.E.B. Du Bois and his theory of double consciousness. I'm going to introduce to you the theory and ask you a few questions afterwards. So we'll get started. W.E.B. Du Bois was one of the most prominent African-American scholars of his time. He believed and took action in many things that could help advance the black community in America. One of his ideas was the theory of double consciousness and how it is a gift of African-Americans. In one of his books, The Souls of Black Folk, he describes this theory as always looking at oneself through the eyes of others. In other words, the first lens is how you perceive yourself, and the second is how others perceive you. Du Bois also states that this is a common form of blackness, and that all African Americans encounter it even in today's contemporary life. So I open up this question to you, Professor Everhart. Do you feel that this theory of double consciousness still exists today? If so, how do you think that other blacks embody this theory?
Well, first off, I would like to say thank you for interviewing me, Jeremy. This is absolutely an interesting topic that I am quite aware of what double consciousness is. To answer your first question, I would have to say double consciousness has existed and will continue to exist for generations to come. It is absolutely a learned behavior educated to black children, whether consciously or subconsciously, by individuals of influence such as parents, teachers, and peers. Double consciousness is exemplified, whether negatively or positively, by blacks in every aspect of their lives, from their diction to their physical appearance.
Okay, so moving on, do you feel that you yourself embody this theory every day?
Subconsciously, I would have to say that, yeah, I embody this on a daily basis. Consciously, when a situation presents itself and there's a certain desired outcome, I will, to some degree, display double consciousness.
Okay. As a professor, in the work field as opposed to just in the general social life, how do you differ? Do you change your attitude, the way you dress, or the way you speak, or anything about yourself going into the social life and going into the work field?
Absolutely. I'd have to say it's just not only myself. I feel that others as well. Work is work, so you do have to be professional in that sense. But any time outside of that is my own personal time in which, yes.
So you do act differently as an African American? Your actions?
There is a distinction between professionalism and me personally, but when the situation is just strictly personal, it absolutely depends on the situation, and it depends on the atmosphere in which I am in.
Okay. Another question. Do you feel like this theory of double consciousness only applies to African Americans, or does it apply to other ethnic minorities?
Double consciousness not only applies to African Americans, but it also applies to other cultures as well as other genders, depending on the circumstance that they are in.
Okay. Moving on. Do you think that African Americans who say, quote, "I don't care" of what the white society thinks actually overcome color blindness?
That is a good question. I would have to say whether an African American makes that statement or not, he or she will not actually overcome color blindness. Those who make the statement, I don't care, or actually even those that are on the contrary, stating I do care what white society thinks, they are on a distinctly higher level of double consciousness, I believe, absolutely segregating themselves further from true self-recognition.
Okay, moving on. Is it possible to get beyond the color line where whites acknowledge blacks as other and blacks recognizing themselves?
I believe it is very possible to get beyond the color line, but I would have to say that it is the will and persistence to obtain this feat, which I feel is a great feat. That is actually the real challenge.
Okay. So, in the future, do you feel that, how soon in the future do you think we can get past this color line? This color, yes, line.
It will be in the distant future. Putting a time restraint on it seems quite unrealistic. But it because of its greatness, it will take plenty of time.
Okay. Moving on, just to wrap things up with my final question to you, what actions do you feel we need to take, or do you even feel that we need to take an action to break this?
I absolutely believe that an action should be taken. Being knowledgeable is the primary action needed in order to break this cycle of learned behavior. An example, white women with 1 to 2 children are the most common recipients of welfare, not the misconceived black woman. From my criminal justice realm, an example would be, as of June 30th, 2008, approximately 846,000 black males were held in either a state or federal prison or jail within the U.S. This number equivalates to approximately 40.2% of all inmates within this same time frame, and approximately 65% of those were of the age range between 20 and 39. Now, when questioned, when these individuals were questioned, their dominant response reflected the desire to maintain their quote-unquote blackness and not to succumb to the white man's way of living. Knowing misconceptions and faults and teaching against not embracing such concepts, I believe, is key. Now, as of today, action has, in my opinion, been personified, and his name is Barack Obama. This influential man of power, I believe, exhibits the importance of knowledge and Du Bois' idea of finding a true self-consciousness. He not only publicly displays his black affection in the form of a fist pound, I know you've seen that in the news, with his wife, but he also physically and intellectually exemplifies the American dream, all in the comfort of recognizing self.
Okay, kind of going off of that, do you feel that whites can actually look past this racial barrier and actually look at blacks and perceive them as professionals of the business, professionals in many aspects in life? Do you feel that I'm sorry.
I understand what you're saying. Going along with my example with Barack Obama, I feel that they have already reached that level. Putting him as president, first black male president of the United States, shows enough. I believe it absolutely shows enough. and that they do, I mean, beyond what I guess we could possibly imagine, do see as being capable of such positions.
Okay. Just a question that quickly came up. Blacks are perceived more as uneducated in one sense, we can say, by the usage of ebonics. Whites think that it demeans blacks. Do you think that it actually demeans the black culture?
Ebonics absolutely demeans the black culture. To me, it is a excuse. It is actually an excuse to not want to be educated and to not seek education. So, yes, I believe it is demeaning.
Okay. And when just a regular African-American just walks out, what do you think ebonics would be the first thing they would converse with? I mean, use that language with someone? For example, as conversing with a white person as opposed to conversing with the Mexican or another black person. Do you think they will actually use the ebonics towards a white person and that Hispanic or black person?
Initially, no. I feel that initially they will speak to the individual with as sound of a vocabulary as possible until they get a feel for them. And then, depending on the situation, they will determine whether or not ebonics is appropriate.
And that's how we take on this double consciousness.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you very much, Professor Everhart, again, for participating in my case study. You have a great afternoon.
You too. Thank you, Jeremy.